one point what he has raised is the complexity involved in measuring KPIs, right? And you take decisions based on those KPIs, which is not precisely measured. That's one issue what he has raised. Coming back to the point what you raised, like attrition, right? Percentage of attrition as a metric. It is interpreted very differently by a HR to a business team, right? Same way, there are many areas where interpretation can be different. For example, a L&D team might say that the training program is very successful.
Yeah.
But the businessman and business team will say that I'm not seeing any outcome here post-training, right? So there is a lot of conflicts when it comes for KPI. So how do you solve this in real time when you face such conflict across functional team? And who mediates to solve this, or how you fine-tune to get this solved?
I have a question. Sorry, before you, on the question that you have, are we talking about having the same KPI being interpreted differently?
Yes.
Because I heard you say that these are two different KPIs there.
No,
Same
KPI.
That's a different
story. Like,
See,
you look at
so the L&D team says that his productivity has increased by 20%.
Right.
But the business team is not able to see that productivity.
No, but if the productivity is increased, then it has to be a measure which is measured against a yardstick.
But there is no agreement on that.
There is no
But there's no
expectations.
Sign off on, see, for example, attrition. So the HR team looks at low attrition as a
stability
good
is a good thing.
Good thing.
But whereas the business team understands that they are not utilized well, or they are not stretched properly, therefore they have a very comfortable life.
I put a UAE flag on top of the submission I give to the headquarters. Okay. It's called UAE. Utilization, attrition, and efficiency. There are three things they want to know. So I call it UAE. And in each of these, to the point that she was making, attrition. So then you start creating layers. Regrettable attrition, non-regrettable attrition. Then you start who decides the regrettable, non-regrettable. So then you go into that story, and you can have a PhD on the story. Then you have this whole thing about learning. By the way, it's not only the story about the L&D versus the production. If the production wants to show a higher utilization, and they have gap because there's no work, they put themselves on training. Oh, now we have got a new software.
Correct.
So basically the person was, then you have, after 1 year, you have an argument on the number of training days allowed inside the production.
Right. Yeah.
By the time that happens, a new technology has come. So you have to upskill. It doesn't go to L&D. Some is done by L&D, some is done by the people on the floor itself.
Operational training, yeah.
So in each of these UAE, there is more debate that gets into it, because you are creating more and more interpretations, and it's never ending. So then the board finally decides who should be kept, who should be changed, who should be who.
For example, I'll give an example. For example, let's assume there is an increase in inventory in the manufacturing.
Okay.
Now, this increase in inventory can be interpreted very differently by the production team.
Correct.
And very differently by the sales team.
Sure.
And very differently by the finance team.
Yeah.
Am I right? Now, finance team might look at as it is a locked up investment.
Yeah.
A production team might look at that I'm able to make inventory available as and when it's required, or I'm giving required inventory for the sales team. Sales team might look at very differently, right? So how do we solve this puzzle, right? How do we, it is a conflict, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll give you an example of the beverage business. So, all of India, the beverage business, soft drink business, essentially is geared up for 90 days. All the capacity is built for 90 days of peak summer in the country. So all the production happens, there's some pre-production happen, and you need to, and they say close to around 3 million outlets that one needs to be present to. Therefore, you need to be in different cities, different states, all of those. So the logistics team will say that this is the demand, I had got 100 cases, let's say example, to you. The sales team comes back and says, I needed those 100 cases across 50 locations. You gave them only 85. So your KPI is met, but mine are not. But the finance team is saying that, okay, I'm seeing a lot of logistics work happening. I'm seeing a lot of salespeople there, but my revenue is not really coming through. So therefore, these are challenges which happen in real life every single time, every single year. These are exactly the same KPIs being addressed and So there has to be somebody who actually has to look at the overall business and whether the KPIs are being met at the right place or not. So to your question, that if that's how do you solve for it, and what are there has to be a business goal, as you said, UAE keep it flat, saying these are the organization, these are the goals of KPI that everybody is dealing with, and these are the implications for each function.
So break it down.
So I'll
Absolutely. And how do they flow into and the interpretation of each? Otherwise, it'll never really match, and every organization function will have huge challenges on account of aligning themselves to the organization.
So
See,
I'll give a business example just to counterbalance what you said. So I'll give you a business example here. Okay. So quality team and finance team. So quality team's metric is that how can you achieve the best quality, right? For finance, I've seen situations where they have said, you have put so many gating criteria to quality that you will obviously achieve this, but at what cost?
Correct.
So for example, you have a quality checker at the vendor side, you have a quality checker in India side, then you have a global quality checker. It's duplicated cost, right? So I think quality, so in a situation like this, I think I'll just borrow something that you've said. How do you come to this common expectation setting? Which are the departments which will get into loggerheads, and sub-departments should get at loggerheads for the larger benefit of the organization. If you don't have those contradictory things, then it's not good, right? You balance it out. For example, a quality and a finance people, quality at what cost, or attrition like we discussed. So I think common expectation setting, underlying factors of cost and all which are non-negotiables, very sacrosanct. They are very, very important. But while I speak about it, I don't see it happening that too often. And one of the points that he mentioned is who is calling the shot. But the real question to answer is who should call the shot.
That's a change. That's a good point.
At that point of time, who should let go of their functional head had to think about the larger organization.
That's the KPI.
Yes. So I think the question that is being asked is, what is the Goldilocks zone? So every metric or KPI, if you make it extremely, so it's like, just right, Earth is there because it's the just right distance from the sun, it's the Goldilocks zone. Every KPI is in the Goldilocks, so that what we are debating is what is that Goldilocks zone and who should make the call? That is question number one. I think before that question gets answered, what always happens in organizations on a yearly planning cycle is everybody tries to better their metrics. So even if the organization has achieved the Goldilocks zone in a particular year for the KPI, which is just right. Next year. Okay. Next year, every function will be again in a push and pull scenario because every function wants to look good. Okay. And then that whole thing will again kind of, go out of whack because all organizations every year set goals which are big, hairy, audacious. So KPIs will continue to have this creep. Once it continues to have this creep, the Goldilocks KPI will go out of the window. So first we have to establish the Goldilocks KPI. That's the first fight. But once you have fought that particular battle, people change, KPIs change, the direction of the company changes. So again, this battle continues to, I think why we are kind of getting a sense of this continuous situation where we never converge is because every year, this is again a new discussion across every function, which is fundamentally counterproductive. So it, in a way, from a practitioner perspective, it continues to remain a pain point. And
I might have a little disagreement
Sure.
with the fact that it is counterproductive. At times it could be super productive.
Sure.
It is when you are in that zone when it's a virtuous cycle, when everybody actually contributes in such a manner that it aids the other functions, it actually could be. And therefore, we have examples of organizations that have grown year after year. And for decades, they have actually delivered shareholder value plus growth plus everything else. So those places, it actually indicates. So how does the leadership of the board, as you had mentioned, how do they work together to ensure that the KPIs which are there might be different for different functions and entities, but how they come together? There are enough examples of organizations where the flow of information, direction, as well as what their key metric is, and how does that fit in with all the other entities alike? Those organizations actually, when it works beautifully and keeps on working till time breaks down, which is nature of things, right? And then you try and come back and bring it.
So I think when you have multi-divisional different business organizations that are very used to creating a KPI for consumer products, say tobacco, right? Now they go to hotels. So the board remains the same on the top. So their understanding of different businesses to set KPIs also needs to change with the fact that they have either acquired businesses or started businesses, and those require very different type of KPIs. So I think I see this also in the multi-divisional world, where the KPI setting is one is Goldilocks, one is only lock, one is only Goldie. So I mean, it goes in very different directions there, right?
So if I look at from the organizational approaches, different organizations call it differently for a lack of, or maybe for the benefit of the common understanding, we call it annual operating plan. So you will always have a strategic goal and you will always have an operational goal.
Correct.
So how part to fix it is that bringing it to a unit level of pricing or a costing, which comes into your capex versus opex. To give an example across, we are exploring, it's been a couple of years now, how do I look at utilization and attrition, blending it, what you call good or not so good. Like if, whether it's a part of the strategic versus which is your capex, or whether it's operational goal versus the opex. And we tie to that either attrition in the sense, the person who is attriting, who has resigned, what is the utilization first? If it is less than 60%, for me, that is healthy because that gives me my unit costing, either at a strategic level or at the operational level.
But the conflict comes in measuring that productivity, no?
So that is where the utilization comes in, because that is when the attrition is done in that. So I'm tying with the business goal, which is the outcome focus. Is my utilization of an X salary attrition is 80% utilization person, then that means I am break evening with this talent. If it is 40% utilization, I would have an opportunity to hire the next talent at a much affordable cost possibly, or in lieu, I will invest in a technology which will help me to navigate that journey. And that is where the evolution is. I'm not saying we got perfected, but that is where the thinkings are going on in that direction. How to? Is it to, have you perfected? Maybe something would work for us 2 years back. Now, not possible because the cost of acquisition has gone higher. Either technology or the people, both.